Want to make a podcast? Spotify's got a platform that lets you make one super easily, then distribute it everywhere and earn even more money. All in one place, and it's for free. It's called Spotify for Podcasters, and here's how it works. Spotify for Podcasters lets you record and edit podcasts right from your phone or computer, so no matter what your setup looks like, you can start creating today. Then you can distribute your podcast to Spotify and everywhere else podcasts are heard. Video podcasts are also available on Spotify. With Spotify for Podcasters, you can earn money in a variety of ways, including ads and podcast subscriptions. Best of all, it's totally free with no catch. Ever since we discovered Spotify for Podcasters, we feel like having options like video podcasts, Q&A, and polls has let us be creative on a whole other level. I highly recommend you give it a try. So download Spotify for Podcasters app or go to www.spotify.com/podcasters to get started. Hey everyone, we just wanted to start off this episode by wishing our guest Hope Crawl a happy birthday. Happy birthday, Hope. Your day, I hope it's fantastic. Thank you again so much for being one of our guests on a regular basis. You and your husband are fantastic, and we really appreciate your willingness to share your story and be so honest and open with our audience. So happy birthday again, Hope.
Welcome to the X's and T podcast, where we talk about X's and T with your host, Corey.
And Danny. Hey guys, it's been so long.
Welcome back. Sorry we left you again.
You know, we talk a lot about toxic relationships and ghosting and how it's not good. But
and then we ghost you.
All the time. But we're here, we're back, and we are excited to just be a little bit more consistent. Hopefully, I think our lives are kind of settling back in, hopefully, to really get back on a regular schedule. But we've missed you guys. We really have, I promise.
We have a lot of new and exciting ideas coming, so stay tuned.
Yes. Oh my gosh. The things that Corey and I have discussed already, we are so excited. When we know more, you'll know more. But seriously, it's so exciting. I'm excited. But here we are. We're excited because, again, we get to go back to this topic that you guys love. And when I told my story, I had no idea it was going to be as popular as it is, because I didn't realize how many people actually experience the same things. I thought it was just going to be like I get to tell my story about being in this weird cult-like environment, and Corey was going to laugh at me the whole time.
It started out that way.
It did. But we're still laughing because we get a lot of requests to talk about stories all the time. So thank you to everybody who's reached out to us and has told us like, hey, that you resonate with us. And we're so grateful for that. That's really what we want to do, is be able to reach everybody. But we are back to talk about worldwide. And we have back with us the amazing Canadians themselves. We have Hope and Fyscher with us. Hey, guys.
Hello. How are you guys?
Hey.
We're good.
Okay.
You know what's funny is I love hearing you guys talk, because you guys might not realize you have an accent, but you do. And it's so cool. Like,
is that right, eh?
No, we don't hear it, and it's funny because I used to serve at like a pretty international restaurant in an airport, and I remember people coming up to me and being like, "You have such a good Canadian accent." I was like, "I don't hear I just sound normal to me," and he's like, "You sound Dutch," and I was like, "Oh, okay." I was like, "I sound Dutch," but he's like, "Yeah, just a little bit." So there's a few funny terms that us Canadians have that just don't translate in the States. It's definitely hilarious to us. So.
Well, I think the only real knowledge I have of Canada is hockey, maple syrup, snow, and apparently there's like this level of niceness that we don't have here unless you're in the Midwest.
It's actually pretty funny. Like today, even we were at the gas station getting some energy drinks, and when we were reversing out, there was a guy next to us, and we were trying to like battle, and we were like, "No, you go first," and he's like, "No, you go first," and we're like, "No, it's okay, you go
you
first."
Back out first. No, you back out first. It was a Canadian standoff.
It was a Canadian standoff. Like that was a text.
Usually, when you're holding the door for somebody, it's like, "After you." No, after you, and it's like both just stand there saying, "You go ahead," and nobody goes through the doorway.
Like, yeah, we are pretty nice.
That's hilarious. Oh. Yeah, no, here you walk into a gas station and you're lucky if the cashier says hi to you.
People, especially here in Arizona, it's It's like,
They'll just ram me off the
who can
road.
get there first? Yeah, seriously.
There was a lot of like things I've seen on TikTok of like dash cam videos of people not letting other people in and then like rear-ending them and being like,
Yep.
you shouldn't have went in. And it's like that never happens. It's like as soon as somebody turns on their signal light, it's like you're letting them in.
Oh, everybody. Yeah.
Like that's just how it goes. Like you're like, yeah, you can go into this lane. Even if the
No.
lane's ending and you're like, oh, you're just an asshole who just like tried to like go to the end of the lane and then swoop in last minute, you're still gonna let them in. Like it's
I feel like
like-
here you're
Like-
lucky if you get somebody to use their like turn signal.
oh
Right.
yeah,
They
no,
just don't use them.
Very different.
And they just,
yeah.
whoop, you're like, oh, okay.
yeah.
Right. And if you're not going at least 10 miles over the speed limit, they are honking at you. They're like speeding past you. They're like flipping you off. It's a whole, it's a
But
whole,
that,
Oh,
like,
yeah,
kind of
whole thing here.
happens.
If you're not in the
We like
fast lane.
we flash our high beams. We're like, please move, and then they wave, and then you feel like a dick because they
Like, oh,
waved at
you
you.
waved, okay. Like, no, I'm not mad.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
And they
about
give you a
that, is
thumbs
what you
up. You're
say.
like,
They
sorry.
wave. You're like, oh, my bad. Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
I feel like this is so relevant to our topic actually
Oh, yeah.
today. Just the niceness. So we're back again to talk about Worldwide. Here's our disclaimer. We have no beef with the distribution company Amway. All of this is our experiences with Worldwide Dream Builders. All of the names of our upline have been changed because one, our old upline are watching. Corey and I know for a fact that my old upline are watching. Craig's constantly checking out our
Although,
stories and stuff.
Haven't seen Craig in our stories in a while.
But also, Craig needs to come. Maybe he just hasn't seen the fact that we have uploaded recently. I think that also could be it. I'll post it and he'll see it on his sock puppet account on that Facebook group. So I'm sure we'll be
Just a
seeing
side
Craig again
note,
soon.
We actually are thinking, so we actually, since the time we've talked to you, we've been approached by a couple of people in superstores and stuff. So we think we're going to start plugging your podcast to them.
Yeah.
Stuff we've talked about.
Hell
So-
yeah.
Actually, yeah, that's a
Please
good
do.
You guys are the
idea.
best.
You know, Worldwide, you should listen to this podcast.
Yeah.
It'll kind of get you up to speed and see what they say.
Yeah.
See if they listen to it.
Oh,
or
they'll
not, but
totally plug
Yes.
you. So they'll be like, no,
that doesn't happen.
negativity.
That doesn't
Yeah.
happen.
You could tell them that we discuss Worldwide. You don't have to say it's negative, and they'll just
Yeah.
listen.
Yeah,
They'll
like-
listen, and then they'll be like, "Oh my gosh, what is this?" They'll go to their upline about it, and then someone's sending a Kate up about us yet
yeah.
again.
Mhm.
And I'm okay with that.
I hope so.
But one of the things that we have all experienced with Worldwide, and anybody who's been a part of it, or really any other MLMs, but I don't know that any are as kind of strict about it as Worldwide is, and that is the toxic positivity.
Mhm.
There was no such thing as having negative emotions ever unless it was with your upline. And even they were the same way. You would never know if they were struggling
Mhm.
because they also had to be toxic and positive.
Mhm.
And there's so much I think that all of us have seen to kind of speak to what does that really do to you as a person?
Mhm.
Because I know when I left, it was very challenging for me to even go to somebody like Corey, who wasn't in Worldwide and who was a friend who I was like, oh gosh, I'm not supposed to talk to her about my feelings. Wait, is that okay?
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
where do you draw the line? Like, where is that okay? And I think,
Like we
yeah.
had what was it? Don't pass the negative downline. So you weren't
Yeah.
allowed to like say anything that was affecting you, no matter what
Never.
it was. It wasn't like, oh, why are you driving a different vehicle to a board plan? It's like you couldn't say that your vehicle was under maintenance. You couldn't say anything. Like something as simple as that could be relatable to everybody. You know, that, oh, I got a flat tire, so I got to take this car instead of this car. I got to borrow my mom's car. I got to, you can't say any of that stuff. And
Yeah.
that messes with your head because it's tricking you into thinking your life is so great, and it's
Yeah.
not. Like,
Exactly. Really does. And then it again, like I'm pretty sure that you shouldn't even talk to your parents about this stuff. Like
Yeah.
they
wouldn't
are your mom
understand.
and dad
Yeah.
now.
no,
Yeah, they don't
they
understand.
aren't the
They
people.
can't give proper
Yeah.
advice. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it was
Right, because they've had a job for X amount of years and they're probably divorced or on their third marriage and they can't speak to you on anything at all, which
They
is
don't know the plan. They don't
so
know anything
sad.
about it.
and that messes with you too, and it also messes with your relationship with your parents too, unless they get
Yeah.
around. And like, I even remember my mom being like, I can't bring a coffee to a board plan. Like, what if I get tired? I work nights. Like, I can't bring a coffee. And I was like, nope,
Looks bad on us.
products only.
Yeah.
Like, you
We
gotta
should be giving
like,
you excess.
you know, and like the rest of our parents kind of called us out on it, you know what I mean? Like, my dad was just very
Yeah.
much, no, that's called like if you have just one product, one direction that you're kind of going in, that's kind of culty.
You're right or you're
For
wrong.
sure.
Type thing,
Like,
yeah.
yeah, you're right or you're wrong. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's one of the things that I didn't recognize at first because they were so good with manipulation.
Mhm.
I remember when I first got around, we were still kind of able to bring products into the board plans. But eventually they were like, hey, this is not a movie. You're not here to be entertained. You can't, don't leave your
Any
snacks
snack
in
will
the
bring in
car.
bar. Yeah.
Yeah. But like, at the same time, you're sitting down for 4 hours, and like,
Yeah.
the board plan started 8 o'clock. What time are you eating dinner? You're eating dinner at 5 or 6.
Or on the way or
Or
whatever.
yeah, like, and it's like by the end of the board plan, you're hungry and you're super hungry, and you're not allowed to say anything. You're not allowed to say, hey, I have a gas bubble like sitting in my stomach because I've been sitting down for 3 hours. Like,
Right.
you're just like, I don't know how to describe it, but every time I would go to a board plan, I was severely uncomfortable. And I look back
Yeah.
on those instances now and I'm like, oh, it wasn't because I was hungry. Was I dehydrated? Was I this? And it's like, I think it kind of was my subconscious being like, get out of here, like,
Yeah.
it's such a weird feeling, and I don't know how to describe it because we called it board plan, like
Yeah.
so specific.
But it's true. And I can definitely attest that I felt the same way a lot of the time, maybe not exactly the same, but the amount of times that I felt sick to my stomach, and I have like a teeny tiny little bladder, like I would have to go to a board plane dehydrated because then I would either be sitting there like, oh my gosh, I have to go to the bathroom, and try not to show everybody that I have to go to the bathroom really bad, or be comfortable, but I haven't drank any water in hours because I know my body. And
Right.
then the excess always just made me nauseous. Like I'd
Oh,
have
Oh,
it.
the excess was so bad.
it bloats you, and it makes you, I hated that feeling. Even when I was like super pregnant and I was like, okay, now I have an excuse to go to the bathroom, and nobody's gonna be like, oh, she's
Yeah,
going to
yeah,
bed, she's
same.
getting up in the middle of this 3-hour thing. Like, I was like, of course she's gonna get up, she's pregnant. It's like, that was the only time
That's what
in
you
like the
needed.
5
Yeah.
years.
Yeah,
Like, I
exactly.
was like,
Like,
in 5 years I was in Worldwide. That was the only time.
people didn't side eye you as you've
Yeah.
been through this shoulder to
Right.
shoulder.
And you have to
And
like
then, of
stand
course-
behind the wall, like being like, when can I
Oh,
sit
I
back
can't
down?
go sit down yet because he's
Yeah.
talking.
Yeah. like,
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah. And then you had to pretend like it was okay.
Yeah.
You could not let on at all that you were the least bit uncomfortable, or maybe your feet hurt because those heels are atrocious, or just anything that could have happened to you in your day. And when you go, and everybody who's been around Worldwide would know that when you go to board plans, you talk to your cross line, right? And there's that cardinal rule, no cross lining or passing negative downline or cross line. You can't express to, Joe and tell him, hey, he says, hey, how's your day? You can't be like, it's all right. You literally have to be like, no, I'm feeling
Yeah.
fantastic. And you just have to be as upbeat as possible. And I think that really adds to the cult-like culture too.
You know what's really funny too? I think about I remember Nolan talking in his board plan and saying, when you're at work, why do you tell people that you're okay when you're not? He's like, why do you do that? And I was like, oh, that's a really good point. And our upline at the time, his name is James, I remember saying hello to him, how are you doing? And he said, I'm okay, I've been better. And I was like, good on you for saying like you're not totally fine, because Nolan brought up in the board plan that it was okay to say you're not okay. And then as time passed, it was like, you are absolutely not allowed to say you're not doing okay.
Wow.
Like, so it was like totally double speak. Like,
Yeah.
it was not the truth.
It was like save it for your rally type thing. It's
Yeah.
like you're good, you're great,
Yes.
right up until your rally comes out, and then you talk about all the struggles you had.
Yeah.
It's like, and the ones you remember are worth talking about. But if you don't have it as ammunition for your rally, then it's not important enough to be burdening with your downline with. You only punch upwards, you know? It's like, so there was always this,
Right.
it was like you were a paradox when you would talk to your cross line. It's like,
Yeah.
you could be having the worst day or you could have the best day, and you know how you're going to have the conversation. It was already figured out for you.
Yeah.
Even when I was pregnant, I did not enjoy being pregnant. Like, it was a horrible time for me. I was sick,
Yeah.
I was pain, I had sciatica, like all of it. I was just not prepared for. And but my direct upline, Jane, she was doing IVF, so she was having trouble conceiving. So even talking to my upline and being like, I am not enjoying being pregnant
There was
right
no one
now.
you could
I am
talk
in
to.
severe pain. But
Oh my
she
gosh.
couldn't conceive, and it was like a hard thing for me to even. I couldn't talk to anybody about it.
Oh my
Basically,
gosh.
it's like, I really am uncomfortable. I don't want to go to board plans. I'm throwing up. I feel bloated. I can't sit down because my ass hurts all the time. And
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
it was a very uncomfortable time for me. Like I couldn't talk to anybody.
And that's sad too, because you should be allowed to go to somebody who maybe doesn't necessarily have the same experience, and they are struggling. Like you said, she was struggling to get pregnant, but it's still her job as an upline or even as a good friend to be like sensitive to the conversation. That is not how true friends function.
Yeah, exactly.
Man.
And it goes back to what they say their roots are, is that it's a safe space where anyone can be themselves, and it's in the pursuit of building a better, more authentic version of yourself. But you can't talk about the bad day you had. You can't complain about anything. You can't, you're working on bettering yourself, but you can't talk about the things that you're working on.
It's like we're robots.
Yeah, it's like they didn't have their
funniest
facts sorted out.
Right. And the funniest thing to me was I was drawn in by the whole toxic workplace, and I don't want to have a job, and I don't want to, listen to my boss tell me all these things. And then I can't even get up to go to the bathroom. Like,
right. Yeah. They
like,
actually say that. You have to ask like a child to go to the bathroom at work. They use these examples.
Take the labels off your bottles. You can't drink this here. You can't do this. You can only dress like this. You can only do that.
Can't be early.
You can't be too early. Yeah. Like, our time is valuable, everything. Like, all these things that we learn about a toxic workplace, and they're translating this into board plans. And it's like, what are we supposed to believe here? Like, is this how the world works? Because we're human. We're human beings. We have to use the washroom. We're hungry. We're bloated. We feel these certain ways. And they're just, it's so frustrating.
It's hard too. And I think, Corey, wasn't one of our recent episodes talking about toxic relationships and what to look out for?
Yeah, I think we, in our red flags episode, we really kind of hit that and talked about what to avoid in both like intimate relationships and just like friendships relationship wise.
And well, what does this all sound like?
It's all toxic is what it is.
Yeah, you can see it.
It is. And it's sad too, because you're also talking too. I'm going to kind of go back really quick. Fyscher, you were saying that you have to save your story for a rally. For anybody who's not familiar, I don't know that we've gone over this yet, but your rally is your story. So if you're in quote the process, and then you gain what do they call it? An offer into partnership, right? You have to follow, what do they call it? Core, change or remain employed. Core basically had like at X amount of steps. I don't freaking remember, but you had to do certain things per day, right? You had to do specific things throughout the day. And one of those things was listen to an audio. And I know before we have touched on that 1,000 tape stare, or that you're just regurgitating the crap that you're hearing on those audios. That audio is the rally. They record that rally so that way you're there to motivate people. And that's where you get to talk about like the nitty gritty of your life. And I still think those people really like, I don't want to, they like sugarcoat still some of the things that they went through, but you don't get to talk about who you are as a person until you have been brainwashed enough to reach a certain
To
pin level. I
prove.
think it's
Yeah,
platinum, right? Or
exactly.
ruby?
Yeah.
I don't know which one it was. When was the rally? Was it when you went Emerald? You got a rally?
You got an emerald. You got a rally at
Oh,
Emerald.
a rally, yeah. Emerald, yeah.
But they would still like record some platinums.
Yeah,
If you were a
but you can't
platinum,
speak on any worldwide stage until platinum, or when your upline believed in you enough, they would edify you when you got to say your micro story in front of everybody. That was pretty much it. But it really comes down to they have to trust what you're going to say, and they have to know that you are brainwashed just enough to not be like saying something that they would consider off the rails.
It actually has nothing to do with your story. It has everything to do with the way you tell your story, which is a slight difference, but it means everything.
I wonder if we could find rallies on YouTube. I want to show Corey one later so she can hear
we
just
still
a little
have
snippet
downloaded
of it.
content.
Yeah,
we could send you some of the stuff we've saved,
really?
audio recordings and stuff like that.
I don't still have all this stuff because you know what? Honestly, at the time I thought I was recording gold. So like I recorded every board plan that Nolan did.
No, same. Yeah.
Like,
every function I'd have hours of audio. I deleted all of that stuff.
I'll never forget my first dream night. I had this lady sitting next to me. She's an emerald now, or when we left, I guess. And she was talking about her morning of retirement. And then the non-recording sign came on like the screens. And I was like, why do we not record? Like you're an emerald. Like, why do we not record? And she's like, because if this gets out, they'll shut us down. And she's like, and what would we do without this system? And I was like,
live better freaking lives.
Yeah, horrifying if you think about it for more than 5 seconds. But when you're in it, you don't think about it.
Yeah, I'm 19 years old.
You're right. We can't get rid of this. We can't lose this. This is amazing. It's like, this is going to help so many people.
Right. Oh, that is wild. And I really wish that I could see a little bit more of that behind the scenes stuff that you don't start to see until you're a larger pin. Like you had said in the last episode, Fyscher, you had said they have to be either really ignorant or just accepting of everything that's going on because they're collecting handfuls of cash, right? Yeah. And I feel like people do get to that point because of that toxic positivity. I feel like you are so brainwashed to a point where you don't even believe yourself. Like I feel like
or you
everybody
wouldn't dare
has
believe
that, right?
yourself. Yeah. It's like, what would happen if you started to doubt yourself? Where would you go? It's like all of this work would be for nothing if you started to see the truth or what you thought was a lie or whatever. It's like, you have to believe, otherwise you'll go insane and you have to realize the weight of the scam you're a part of. So people choose to believe.
That happened to us once we got out. We started to, at least Fyscher did. I didn't really get into this, but he started getting into the mindset of like ideology and like what ideology actually does to your brain.
Oh, I started reading about communist Russia and Orthodox religion and like I went down quite the rabbit hole after getting pulled out of that because I started to see commonalities of like Manson and Waco and
Wild Country.
Osho and all them. It's like I started to realize to connect the dots between all of that stuff. And I couldn't help but read all about it because I could not believe how badly I was tricked. Yeah, and if people come over, I tell them about it and I say we were fooled. It's like you have no idea how badly people can trick you in the world.
Yeah, and you would think having seen those documentaries about all of those, right? You think that, and I think I was even in Worldwide when that documentary Wild Wild Country came out because I'm from Oregon where that whole thing went down in that small town. My mom was actually telling me because I would ask her about it and I would say, Mom, do you remember? She's like, yeah, we didn't talk to anybody who wore the color red. They were part of that weird cult.
That's so weird that could happen to somebody and it's no different. They say things like, I remember seeing a quick interview about a cult like specialist or a cult expert and he said, oh, you look at how they act and you go, I'd never fall for that. But he said there's a 100% chance that if you were to encounter somebody that could do that to you, you would in fact fall for it because you're only human. And they pose it in such a way that you just can't disagree with it. It's such an enticing idea.
The world is so negative and we can have this naivety around like how the world is. And when you have this little bubble like Worldwide that says
positive and they're all helping each other out.
And we're like, no negativity. You can leave your bag on the seat because no one will steal it. If you go to work, you gotta lock your stuff in a locker. And all of these things that make Worldwide seem so heavenly in comparison to the rest of the world,
Yeah.
of course it's going to draw you in because you want that. Everybody wants hope.
And
Everybody
it's
wants happiness.
universal.
Yeah.
They
Like,
prey on the
Yeah.
universal.
yeah.
It's sad, but you're so right. And I know that when I first entered into Worldwide, it really was my safe space. It was where I felt
It was
like
everyone's.
I had people, right? Even you're getting uplifted, especially when you came from those toxic environments, which again, they prey on people who are going through it.
Those are the people that get
And
hooked. Yeah.
because you're like, oh my gosh, finally, this ray of sunshine that I have been dying to have in my life. But
Mm-hmm.
you don't start to see that dark side of the toxic positivity until you are so deep into it. And then something happens. And it's always that like big kind of event that happens in your life. And you're like, oh shit, I got to get the hell away from this because this caused that.
Yeah. I mean, even a couple like major things happened in Fyscher and my relationship. And I remember like they said that we could talk about like little petty things that we would fight about. And it was like, then you become relatable, you know? So it's like when you're trying to find another couple to be prospecting. It was a balance. It was a balance. So it was like, you could go and be like, oh yeah, my husband does that too. Ha ha ha. But it was like you couldn't be like, oh yeah, I really hate it when my husband does this. Like you couldn't. There was like this fine line that you had to walk to be able to be relatable and recruit people.
Yeah.
The core values. Or
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I remember one of the things that they told me to use was the fact that I had survived domestic violence as a way to both coach people and be relatable to people, especially women, because that has always been one of my goals. Is ever since I left that relationship, I've always just wanted to make an impact with domestic violence because I went through it. I got to use this somehow. And they really used that where they're like, this single mom, she's like, they would use my story to relate to other people. And they would, they would tell us to do the same thing, like use my story to relate to people. Just like, I know somebody. And I think that was a huge reason behind us starting this podcast, because Corey and I had a story that we wanted to share that she had never told anybody, that I hadn't gone into much detail with, that we wanted to make a difference. And I feel like this creates more of a difference than what I was doing in Worldwide. Because at the end of the day, what am I having these women who are struggling going through? I'm telling them to spend $600 a month if they're a single, and then go out, spend all their time away from their kids if they had kids to talk to other people and get them to do the same thing. That's literally all we were doing.
Yeah, exactly. It's such a noble idea. Like, you know, use the negative experiences you had to help build others. It's like, the premise is so noble. But then if you were to convert that to their business plan, which is recruit more people, use it as an influence to get people to join. And it's like, they take such a noble cause and they pervert it in a way. It's like, it's because that really is a good idea to try to caution people and to educate people and to do all this, but they use that idea and turn it into, we need to launch more people, we need to get people following the system, we need to it's like all under this same guise that's we're helping people. But it's they're sneaking the referrals, they're sneaking in the PV, they're sneaking all that stuff in under the ruse of we're genuinely helping people. But in reality, you end up costing all these people you're trying to save hundreds of dollars.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And it creates almost like a savior complex too.
It is. That's exactly what it is.
And it sucks to have that mindset too, where you're like looking at everybody like they need to be fixed. Like it doesn't matter who they are. They want you to look at them like they can be fixed. I remember hearing the last couple that I had through the process, right? And I heard her say this, and that's when I was totally turned off. It's like a switch flipped in my head. I was like, I literally hated that you said that.
Straw that broke the camel's back type thing.
It was, yeah. And it was her saying, I just really like to look at people and fix them. And I was like, what on earth do you think that you offer to people to fix them without asking? And I thought about that after that. And I was like, oh shit, I'm doing the same thing. But I was so irritated at her for saying that because I was like, how dare you? That's so rude. Like,
right,
but
her concern was genuine. Yeah,
it's
like,
true.
But what are you talking about? I'm trying to help you. It's like, no. You're trying to fix me. Whatever that means. Like, they're different things. You can't confuse that. They're different things.
So it was like, you're not broken, but there's just little tweaks that we got to make to make you perfect.
Oh, that's so cringe.
And I will never forget that line because I was like, not that I thought I was perfect, but it was definitely like, oh, that hurts to hear. Like, I don't know what these parts of me you want to fix are. And now that I'm out of it, and I've been out of it for almost 3 years, I'm like, oh, you're just trying to tweak me into being a worldwide bot. That's what you were trying to do.
An AM bot.
Yeah. Like, you're perfectly
But you're not
fine.
operating the way we want you to yet.
Exactly.
So we're going to guide you.
And it's a constant too. Actually, Fyscher, you had said this, and that's what kind of sparked this whole conversation for us wanting to say this, was that they will compliment you while also criticizing you and like bringing you up, but putting you down. Could you elaborate on that? I thought that was such a good point.
Oh, I can go into this. On my end, was the fact that I am the extrovert of our relationship. So that's technically frowned upon, is the woman being the extrovert and the more person, you know? And I remember them telling me to be a submissive wife, to be a quiet woman, to let God, you know, come into me and tell me like how I'm supposed to do things, which is absolutely the opposite of the way I think. So
right.
When they started telling me this is how my personality has to be, and I tried implementing that into my life, where I was like, okay, I got to be quiet. I got to be submissive. I got to clean up after my husband. I got to start doing this. I got to start doing this. I lost my identity, like almost completely. But at the same time, they were complimenting my loss in identity and then criticizing who I actually was.
Yeah.
Like, it was a very weird feeling, because internally I was like, I'm lost. I don't know who I am, because I'm trying to be this thing that I'm not. But you're complimenting me now. It threw me right off, but I feel like you have an idea.
Yeah, I remember one of the points that Hope was just describing. I had a similar experience, is that I'm naturally more reserved. Like I'll talk after the fact and say, hey, something you did upset me. Now that the emotions are down, I'd like to talk about this thing. And they said that's a great attribute to have. But if you're running late for something, let's say an appointment or whatever, and Hope is not listening to you, or she doesn't prioritize what you prioritize, feel free to leave her at home. And if she's not on time, you can go to this meeting and leave her, and that will teach her that your priorities are not to be messed with. And I was like, that is so different from how I would handle things. And I remember saying things like, you want me to like ditch her at home because of a meeting? And he's like, yeah, like she needs to know that things are, you know, you're the man of the house. And if you have an itinerary or a schedule to go make a difference in the world and to build your family, that she needs to respect that. And if she doesn't respect that, you need to be able to show her that you mean business and you're willing to do whatever it takes for the good of the entire family. And I remember thinking that was so not only wrong to how I would handle things, but I couldn't understand the logic behind what good that would even do at all. Like, I don't know why ditching my then girlfriend at the time for the sake of going to a meeting that they probably would no-show anyway would do anything but harm our relationship in the long run. But It was one of those examples where they said, you're doing great, but this would be better. And it was it was not better at all. It would have made things so much worse. I ultimately didn't do that, and I said, hey, I don't think that was respectful. I think that was a bad idea. But but yeah, that just goes to show it's like their advice based on how I act, it was just all wrong. Like, I don't know what it was based off of. They said it was part of the plan, but I don't know where they heard that from. Like, it just didn't make any sense.
It wasn't legitimate. Like, it was a very like just a worldwide thing.
Yeah, like a political answer, worldwide politics and stuff. It's like, this is what you're supposed to say. Had nothing to do with my current situation, like they said they're part of, or that they value, or whatever. It was all an ideological
so sad behind it. And that sucks. So Corey, I'm curious, as an outsider who has not been a part of this organization, what is your feeling on hearing this stuff?
I'm sure that you could tell by my facial expressions. Wow. Yeah.
Like, what good would that do?
Wow. Because I'm honestly in just such disbelief that someone would actually tell you to do that. That's just
in the 2010s too. Like,
I was like, well, why? And it's like, well, you're the man of the house. It's like, I don't understand.
This is Kyle's
like,
dream mentorship.
Yeah, it's like,
but the unfortunate thing is that the more like this is gonna be a hard thing to kind of touch on without making Fyscher seem like a dick, but he's not. Is that it works? That's the thing. Like, the more like you were listening to your husband, the more like these teachings kind of do. Your husband kind of does like it, but not in the right way. Like, even Fyscher was like, I don't think you're liking the way you're acting. Like he's like, I don't think you're enjoying the way you're acting.
If you both agree to remove all the power from one person and put all the power on the other person, and that's both something you guys agree on.
Yeah, but he's like,
it might work, but like, it's only one person's going to be happy, and like, it's not the right way to do things.
It was like, I like that you're listening to me, and I like that we're following what Worldwide is saying. Like he could tell that I was like,
I get this free pass to get my way 100% of the time, regardless if I'm right or wrong. It's just because I'm the man of the house. That's how it goes.
Yeah, like
it's like that doesn't make any sense
thing to explain. I could tell he was uncomfortable, but also
they were all telling me I was right and that my way is the best way, and she should listen and trust. That's the thing, is she should trust my judgment because I'm the man of the house. And it's like, sure, it felt good to get that someone was telling me that whatever I say goes and I get away with whatever I want. It's of course that's enticing, but it didn't feel like I felt like ethically bankrupt or morally bankrupt. It's like, I didn't earn any of this. Someone's telling me that I'm getting away with getting what I want. It's like I get an excuse to be a spoiled brat. It's like it feels good.
And when you're so far into it, for people who aren't a part of Worldwide or haven't been, I think it's hard for them to understand, because I don't think at all that it makes him sound bad, because I know what it's like for men in that organization. If they don't step up to the plate, they're viewed as weak, and the upline will say that too. Like, they will. With my significant other, Luke, at the time when we were together, my upline would speak about him because he is very introverted. He was very opposite. I could not even imagine bringing my significant other now around Worldwide. He's very reserved, very similar to like what you said, Fyscher, where you'll say things after the fact, very quiet. That is my significant other. Like, he is not what Worldwide would say is a man. But if you don't act like that, men are heavily criticized. And it's this whole toxic masculinity. And when you're brainwashed like that and you want the approval, I could totally see how it makes sense for you to go along with what they say.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Like, everything lines up for the man to it's a perfect situation. Your wife listens to every word to a T. You say jump, she says how high. And it's like,
the religious aspect of Worldwide is it's a very much like the wife is quiet and submissive. Like, they had one audio called Sarah, and I remember it was one of my favorite audios to listen to, and it was about Sarah and Abraham in the Bible, and it was basically talking about how Sarah just let Abraham go and like do things like it's not as like misogynistic as I'm making it to sound, but like it still is a very beautiful audio. But at the same time, I remember this person, I don't know if I have an altar for her, she passed away, one of the diamonds, she did this audio, and the way she was speaking about Sarah was very like, she's my inspiration, she's the submissive wife, like she is the person, and my husband is Abraham, who is the guy that's going to go and get what I need him to get. And the influence that had, like, it was very much like, oh, I need to be listening to my husband, I need to be trusting his judgment, even though, we've been together since we were 17, like we were teenagers when we got together. We know the world together, and that's all we know is the world together. So it's like, why aren't we figuring this out together? Why does
no such thing as togetherness?
Like, it makes no sense.
They really did do that. I remember with the toxic positivity, but relevant to what you're saying, is my upline, and Jess was very awesome. She came and she spoke to us about her story, but it's a very good example of what it did to her marriage. And I can't speak to my upline, Jenny and Craig, but they argued a lot. I saw them argue, and it was very much like Craig putting Jenny in her place, right? And she, before Worldwide, was a very outspoken, very dominant person, but Worldwide very much pushed that side of her away for her to become this submissive, poised woman, which I don't think that's who she is deep down. It's so messed up. And it pisses me off to think about the fact that I think, goodness, I mean, me and that significant other, honestly, I should never have been with him. He was not somebody I should have ever been in a relationship with. He didn't want kids. I had a child. He was not in the same place in life as I was. And I think I was very toxic to him. I cannot, if he ever hears us, apologize enough to that poor guy. But Worldwide is the reason why I looked at him as weak, because he did not fit what the positive side, the everything, which exactly. And then it really has taken time. And I think we spoke about this in a different episode where looking at things that Worldwide taught you as like negative and you're trying to change that, like video games, it was still in my head, even like 3 years later. I'm out of it now for even longer. But so 3 years ago, when my partner and I got together, I still had some of those same ideology parts of me that I needed to expel. Like they had to go away no matter what. But it was a growing point to see him as he's not what Worldwide would consider as a traditional man, but he is in his own way a very respectable, good person.
Right.
And it's hard to grow out of that.
Yeah, there was, I think, on the topic of that, there was one, it wasn't really an argument between us, but I think it was a pretty good discussion. We were sitting in the mall and we were eating food, and I remember I was like, I can't not talk about this anymore. Like I was like, I am been keeping my mouth shut for a long time. And I remember saying to Fyscher, I was like, why can't I be the lead of the household? And I don't really remember what you said.
I didn't remember what to say. I was like, well, it's just, you just like, can't. It's not the way things work. It's like,
but he was like, I have control of, yeah, but it was like, I have control of the money. I have control of this. And this is like, we need a point of a head, and it has to be one of us.
Yeah, they said
two heads makes a monster.
I was just gonna say, two heads makes a monster is what they would always say.
So there has to be one
good
someone has to have the final say, and Worldwide's motto is that the husband always gets the final say.
Which is so interesting because of that single.
Yeah.
The woman whose like husband was the construction worker. Yes, her. Because she was the leader of her household very clearly. I mean, her husband would come on stage, but he was he was almost like the meek wife, which no judgment to him. He was not a part of it. And it's always interesting, like, why are you not allowed to be the lead? Because you guys are building it together. But when she was building it as a single, why was she allowed to be the head, the leader, the speaker?
Lead diamond. She was on the board of the diamonds.
Well, it's simply, and it was simple explanation for this. She was cutting edge, she's breaking ground. This is why Worldwide is so forward facing, and so you know, it's like you
that's
can
a very
see this.
Good point.
Oh, it's whatever they want it to be. It could be positive if they want it to be. It's like
it was completely patriarchal and like a patriarchal. I don't know, patriarchal. That's word. Okay. Like I remember like having this discussion with Fyscher, and he's like, the husband's the lead of the household. I was like, that's fine. I'm okay if there's a lead of the household. Why not me? And the only thing that it kept coming back to was you're a woman, and that was the only thing it kept coming back to. Yeah, it's just
the misogyny within that group, because you as a woman, your role according to Worldwide was to sit back, take care of the calendar. You ran the show, but your husband, not you guys in particular, I don't want to say that I'm speaking about you guys, right? But that is their envisionment, that your husband is the face of your family. Whereas like I would see Taylor, the club owner, as a reminder, that his wife she runs everything for that family. She runs it all. She plans everything. She makes sure that her kids' schedule is like taken care of. Like she takes care of it all. But it's her husband, Taylor, who's the one who speaks up board plans. It's her husband who has the diamond ring. It is her husband who's the face, because they always say the man's name first and then the woman. Taylor and blank, their their last name or what have you.
Like Nolan and his wife. That's how we had to introduce them. Nolan and his wife.
Yeah.
She didn't even get a name. Like this was the weirdest thing to me. Like I remember saying to Fyscher, was like, I think you should retire before me, because at the time he was working a minimum wage job and I was making a bit more cash. So I was like, it makes more sense that Fyscher would retire first and then me. And I remember them looking at me like I had three heads.
That was a big debate, actually.
Yeah.
Even though she was the breadwinner at the time, they were like, but she's the woman. Like, how does that work? I don't understand.
Who's going to raise the children?
This is a big deal. It's like, she's the breadwinner, but who is going to go home? And if she's retired, we got to figure this out. It seems
that's
pretty
crazy.
simple.
So, because what's interesting is that's so hypocritical, because they were cross-lined for me. So it was the guy who was above Taylor. And again, it's hard to explain because I don't have a pseudonym for him and his wife, but they're emeralds. And they had a downline who I think they went Ruby at that time. And the husband, he did retire first. And it all happened at a function. I think it was family reunion where he got to smash his alarm clock on stage.
Wow.
And that's so hypocritical because they would allow, it's like a case by case scenario. This couple can do it, but you guys can't. But yet they say we have to be duplicatable.
Yeah.
None of it made sense.
Yeah.
It was all circumstantial stuff in the moment, whatever convenient explanation they had that fit the principles in the moment, regardless if it, made sense down the road or with other situations.
But if we want to kind of get into like this toxic positivity and not only in worldwide, but like how this affected our personal lives. There's something I was talking to one of my best friends, Steve, recently. I sent him that screenshot of our upline, John, who like said all this weird stuff about Andrew Tate or whatever. And I sent him the screenshot and he was like, oh, that's not great. And I said to him, I was like, I explained all the stuff that John used to teach us. And he's like, well, like you're older, you're smarter, you're wiser. And he's like, I'm really glad you got out when you did, and even that conversation that I had with him felt really weird because I was I shouldn't be having this conversation with my friend Steve, who never was in Worldwide and doesn't really know the whole picture, but it was like, no, this is my best friend. Like I want to have this conversation with him.
Yeah, he knows
his vulnerabilities and the best part is I have 3 really good friends that I've stayed in contact with. We've been friends since 2012 when we were all 16, and we've all like stayed really good friends, and they stuck with me through this whole time.
Really?
Yeah, it was like surprisingly. Because obviously I tried to take them all through the process, and Steven called me out all the time and was just like, this is bullshit. And I was like, no, I don't.
no, you
no,
just
I don't. And like he's in law school now, and he's gonna like be a lawyer and stuff. And he was like, buddy, I have your back, but like, come on, like totally. This. And now I'm talking to him and being like, I'm out, and I've sent him your guys' podcast and stuff. He loves it, and he's like, look at you, you're growing. But even talking to him to this day, and I've been friends with this guy since 2010, and talking to him about my problems and my issues, I feel so wrong. I shouldn't be talking to my friend
wrong.
Steve.
It is. It's so strange. And what's interesting is we're actually discussing this in my therapy group. I go to a 3-hour therapy group every week for trauma survivors. And one of the things that they're discussing right now is boundaries. And you're allowed to say as much or as little as you want to the people that you decide are safe. And that was such an interesting concept to me, to think there are people I don't have to say things to. There are people that I can decide.
You decide.
I don't have to tell you. Yeah, but I get to decide whether I choose that person to be safe. I would not go back to Jenny and Craig for shit. They are not safe people. I will call my other friends from back home. I will call my father. I call my father first and foremost. And that is something that they also had always said, don't do that. Don't ever talk to your father because he doesn't know. But I'm telling you what, I talk to my dad every Tuesday and Thursday when we're on our way to therapy, because that's the time that he's in the car and I'm in the car, and we both have the same amount of drive, and he doesn't live here. But I am way closer to my dad and all of my friends now than when I was in Worldwide, because they would call them my beer drinking friends, which is so crazy because I never drank with, one of them I did, but that's their whole
doesn't
thing.
even matter.
Yeah.
They're back
And
for
then,
you.
Okay, this is another thing. Sorry, I'm just gonna totally dive into the parents part of this, because I took my mom through the process, and there was when my mom was through the process, because me and my mom are obviously friends, my upline had to take over, Carol. So my upline Carol took over the process. And while my mom was at her second or third board plan, she didn't show up. And I remember going to Carol and being like, hey, is my mom okay? I was like, what's going on?
Cross-line.
I was like,
which is weird.
What's going on with my mom? And she's like, oh, she's just got some personal stuff going on. I was like,
what?
Is she? Can I text her and make sure she's all right?
No, you can't.
Yeah.
Seriously? So your mom would have been a cross line from you?
Technically, my mom would have been downline, but because we were related, it would have gone past me. Straight.
And we were so
really?
new and everything. It's they were still it was very weird.
It was
I think
so
that was
weird.
That is
that
weird.
was a personal to the way our downline handled things. I don't know if it was necessarily part of the overall way worldwide we recommend things, but that's definitely how they handle
I think
things.
like
I was
but
thinking
at the
about
time I
that.
was my mom was very clear in the accountability part of this. So for her to not show up caused me to worry as her child. I
sure.
was like, what is going on? Is my mom okay? So I text my mom, regardless of what Carol said. I was like, screw it, I'm texting her, making sure she's all right.
That's your mother.
And my mom ended up, she accidentally fell over and she smashed her nose and then ended up getting a black eye under her eye because of the way that she hit her nose. And I was like, and then she sent me a picture and I was like, oh, that's not great. Of course you didn't go to a board plan, but why is Carol trying to hide this from me? Like my mom was injured. Like
that's
it was
a really serious thing.
Exactly. And it was
your own mom. It's like, and you could just see based off bureaucracy that it was ruining the relationship with her own mom. And not to mention that
crazy.
And another aside to what you said, how you picked the people you were comfortable with. They told you when you got hired, when you were launched, that these people are a safe space. You know, out of everybody in the world, these are the ones you're supposed to talk to.
I will never forget the whole leaving your purse on the seat. That was the one thing. They were like, leave your purse on the seat. Nobody's going to steal your stuff. They told us that all the time. And I remember being like at major functions, like stadium size, being able to leave my bag on the seat and not worrying that anybody's going to take anything from me. And it's like, that gets you, like it gets you good because those are safe people, obviously safe people. And
absolutely. And that's what's so fucked about it is like they're telling you what's interesting though. So it sounds like things were done very differently down or up in Canada, because Dawn seems like a really like strict kind of person. Whereas for my upline, they were my Eagles. They're the ones who, because people quit, would become the direct sponsors of Jenny and Craig. It was John and Barbara. John and Barbara were directly sponsored by their son, and they would go to their son. I always found it so strange, but they would go to their son for everything, for advice, and they would just trust him. And I think that there's things you can learn from your kids. Don't get me wrong. I learn from my kids every freaking day. A lot of that's patience, but they eventually, of course, got to go beyond and went above to their upline, who's the guy from Syria and his wife, who is I think she owned a coffee shop, was like a realtor or something. And then, you know, they started being able to go to them, but even they were really young. And again, I don't think that young necessarily means you don't have wisdom, but I think that there's something to be said about young people who enter these roles of leadership and then just kind of think that they have that wisdom. And actually, I'm going to reference a podcast. I don't know if you guys know this podcast or not, but it's the H3 podcast. You guys know Ethan and Ela Klein? No. Okay. You guys should listen to them. I feel like your mindset would be very similar to theirs. He's very, he's like a feminist. He's like constantly talking about how like like uplifting his wife. And he interviewed this guy who is an Andrew Tate fan, right? And his name is Sebastian something, but basically he's talking to him, right? And he talks about the toxic masculinity because this guy is defending it, right? This guy is talking about all of that stuff and how he's so young, but yet he could teach. So Ethan is, I think, like in his like late 30s, 37, 38, whatever. And this kid's 24. And he's like, I can't learn a single thing from you, but you will learn everything from me. He's 24. Arrogance. That's exactly. I'll have to link you guys the podcast episode. You'll find it hilarious because I was angry. I was like, this is bullshit, whatever. But that's what it reminds me of is these kids are coming into this leadership position and because you pop up in that role, you automatically think, oh, my upline's older than me, but I still get to tell them what to do. Despite the fact that John Maxwell specifically says in his books that just because you enter a leadership position does not make you a leader.
100%.
But then at the same time, you chew up the meat and spit out the bones. So that could have been just an irrelevant point by John Maxwell. It's like they cherry pick whatever they want. They pose it in a way that they take what they want as relevant and discard the rest. And that's what you believe. It's like, so no matter what John Maxwell says, if it doesn't jive with what they say, it's a relevant leadership practice. So it doesn't matter if it's good or bad. It's just whatever they want, whatever they deem is good is good.
Exactly. And it all really does come back down to that stupid toxic positivity, because that is the essence of worldwide, is that you literally have to be perfect 24/7. And you're supposed to emulate your upline. You're supposed to edify your upline. Your upline is perfect. And I can't imagine that everybody thought that about their upline, because the amount of times I wanted to be like, well, actually, the guy from Syria is kind of an asshole. He talked about really uncomfortable stuff in his board plans, which I think we talked about was the sexual things that they brought up all the time. And maybe that's for some people, but that sure as hell wasn't for me. I remember just feeling icky in my skin. He was a pompous douchebag. And I'm pretty sure somebody actually called him pompous because he started adding it to his fucking board plan. But
really?
Like
Amazing.
Yeah, he did. He's like, somebody called me pompous. I don't even know what that means. He always like joked about the fact that he said a teacher told him that his IQ was like room temperature and he didn't realize that was not a compliment. So he started adding that shit to his. I mean, it was funny at first, but it very much got old. But yeah, he's an asshole. And I don't want to edify somebody like that. If I'm sitting there feeling uncomfortable in your board plan, why in the hell would I bring somebody else to be uncomfortable here?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you know, this whole toxic positivity thing. Our upline got divorced in the middle of our first year.
Oh shit, that's right.
Yeah.
And
it was, and he disappeared. James just disappeared. We got up in the middle of a board plan and said, I gotta take this call, and he was gone. We never heard from him ever again.
So he was like your worldwide dad going and getting milk and never coming back.
Literally.
That's devastating.
Going to get access.
Right. But that's the toxic positivity of it.
Never came back.
They never really talk about that stuff because, again, they're so positive that we don't talk about the negative shit. But what's funny is you hear it down the rumor line. I remember there's this other couple they were, I think, rubies of Taylor, the club owner. The husband had cheated on his wife and they had to go to like what is it called? Restoration Ranch or whatever? Or is that the Dr. Phil Ranch? I don't remember.
Yeah, Restoration Ranch.
Mr. T.
Is that the one?
Call him.
Oh yeah. Mr. T, yeah. But they had to talk to him, right? They had to talk to him. And it was something that they didn't talk about. They just said that Taylor and his wife took over their business for a while, but everybody knew why. The rumors went around and my upline were very gossipy. So they told us what it was. So like, we know. They want to pretend that we are so naive, but we're not stupid. They're people who show up at board planes and they talk. I remember this one other lady, she was a single mom, had like 3 jobs, and she really motivated me, but she disappeared. And no one wanted to tell me why the hell she was gone. But it's because they got divorced. Like, why can't they be open? 4% divorce rate, my ass.
Yeah, exactly.
See, this is why it feels culty. It's like you hear about Scientology and you hear about like these people that randomly disappear and nobody questions it. It's like, oh, they got murdered.
Yeah, it's like we started whispering about where James went. And then it's like, well, we whispered for 2 board plans, and then a Kate came out saying, yeah, if anyone has any questions, I'm more than happy to talk about it. You know, nothing's out of bounds. You know, it's like, I'm willing to explain everything away. And it's like nothing ever happened because we wouldn't dare spread negativity downline, right? So it's like,
even if we were to ask, like, what happened?
It would be so taboo to even ask that saying, I'm willing to talk about it doesn't warrant any hard questions because the precept of, well, you can't pass negativity downline, you can't ask tough questions, blah blah blah. Well, and then it's like, well, I could talk about it, I'm willing to talk about it, but nobody wants to. It's like, because nobody would dare, because then we're breaking the rules, right? So
exactly
you can get away with whatever you want. Anything can happen. You can say, I'm an open book, because you know they're not going to ask.
Exactly. Yeah, or if they do ask, you have to shame them into not asking you that question.
Yeah,
it's actually too premature.
That's how you master
this is
the
too early in the
conversation.
process. We'll actually discuss this later on in the process. This is actually a really premature question, etc.
Yeah, there's a million ways to deflect it, right?
But even with this toxic positivity, I remember there was one time, I remember because I was pregnant, we were driving to the pool and I said to Fyscher, I was like, I've just learned how to keep my mouth shut. It's basically like how this conversation went. I was like, I've just learned just not to confront people. Don't say anything. Because I am naturally very confrontational, and I always like, addressing conflict because I feel like it's best to just in the moment to address what's going on.
Yeah.
And I was like, I've just learned how to keep my mouth shut. And Fyscher's like, why? And
That's
I was
not
like,
right. You're not supposed to do that.
And
You're
I was like,
tell me, because I make the decisions and I need to know everything before I make the right call. So you should tell me that.
But I was like, no, I just keep my mouth shut now. And I was
That
like, I don't know
sucks.
how to,
Which is,
I don't know
it's
what to
what
say.
she's taught to do.
Yeah.
But at the same time,
Yeah.
I was taught to listen to her. So
Yeah. It's
they,
like, what hills do you want to die on?
yeah,
is basically
exactly.
what
It's
I
like
feel.
there was a
Exactly.
natural
Yeah.
conflict from what they were teaching came up.
Yeah.
Right,
And-
right. Wow, this has been a lot. And I'm actually
Yeah.
surprised at like I feel like every time we talk about Worldwide, I forget what time it is. I always get so lost, but I really am so grateful that you guys came on here and were able to really touch on this subject because you guys get it. You guys were around for a
Mhm.
long time. You both went through so much
Mhm.
and really had to you had to digest it, but you had to move on afterwards. You had to like what do they call it? Molting. You had to molt that skin off of
Yes.
you, right?
Yeah.
And you
I'm
had
still
to
catch up.
become
molting, man.
your
catch up.
actual
Been a long
selves.
time. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, is there anything else you guys just want to add really fast?
If anybody's listening to this that is prospecting or anything, which is the people that we really, Fyscher and myself, want to help out the most, just really listen and really watch out for these things. Really watch out for the toxic positivity. Really watch out for the
Nitpick. If your gut
Yeah.
tells you something is wrong, ask about it.
Yeah.
Try to follow up
Yeah.
on inconsistencies or
Look it up
or
online too.
idiosyncrasies that you notice. Always question that and try to see if they're not genuine, or if they go back on what they say, if they change what they say, or anything.
Yeah,
If
anything
anything
to
is
fit the
unstable,
narrative.
pull on those
Yeah.
threads to see if they're
Yeah.
legit, because
Yeah.
chances are they're not. And
'Cause it
you'll
so
you'll pull
true.
yourself out of it before it even gets started.
And that's
Exactly.
the biggest red flags for us is unnatural positivity is a big thing to
Yeah.
beware of, especially when it comes to recruiting and going to meetings and stuff. Like you understand guests aren't going to understand this positivity,
Yeah.
but if you end up in an area with people in these fold out chairs and they are grossly positive,
That's Worldwide. Get the hell out of there
Yeah.
because like
Ask the
you
tough
said last
questions.
time,
Yeah.
you could lose your 20s to this. And if you're already out of your
And
20s, you could lose whatever decade you're in. And it will
Exactly.
suck
Yeah.
trying to
We don't
rebuild
want that
after
to
that.
happen.
That's our
Well,
biggest.
thank you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime, man. Great.
We love talking to you guys. I can't stress that enough. Our audience, again, we've had people reach out because of you guys too. So
Oh,
you guys are
So
making
sweet.
a difference. And we are so grateful that you guys pitch our podcast to so many people. Like we're so
yeah.
grateful for you guys.
Yeah.
yes.
Exactly.
If anybody has any questions, they can, you
Yeah.
guys have our email. If you want to refer anyone to us, we're more than happy to
Wait,
talk to
what's my
anybody. Can we plug our Instagram?
You guys
Yeah,
can plug
go
your
for it.
Instagram. That's fine.
I think I'm hope.kraal. That's it.
Go follow them on Instagram.
Nice.
They're fantastic. Just don't
So,
go
yeah,
creeping on them specifically for upline purposes either, because
I'm
we will
super-
catch you.
I'm
Okay,
super
man.
private on social media just because I have a kid. So my
Right,
social
right.
media
She'll
is
vet you.
extremely private, but
I'm not. Hit me up. I'll talk to you
we
guys
have
about
the
anything.
same kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Corey, do you have any last thoughts?
Honestly, it's a lot to take in for me because obviously I haven't been through it. So like listening to your guys' stories is just like blows my mind every single time. Even
It's
still,
tough.
like even though I've heard so many, like I've heard Danny's stories, I've heard Jess's stories, and I've heard your guys's, and then I'm still hearing about your guys's, and I'm still learning about like Danny's too. It just like every single time it just blows my mind. So like I know like I'm quiet sometimes, but it's a lot to process.
You're processing it all. I get
Right,
you.
right.
Even the family and people that we send these to, they're just
No
so,
one
like,
can believe
we
what
had
we were
no
a part
idea.
of. It's like the amount of
Yeah,
times we've
it's
sat them
crazy.
down and explained in detail. They're
They're
blown away
baffled.
every time. Yeah, they don't know
Yeah.
that it actually happens here.
You just
It's
believe these
insane.
people are your god. You believe these people are your god, and there's no way to explain yourself around that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. And I think that's why I really appreciate these stories and why we love sharing them is because one, our stories are important. We have a right to speak them. You guys have a right to be heard. And two, we want to make sure other people are aware of what they're getting into. Make sure that you understand these people that you're getting in contact with. Somebody approaches you, proceed with caution. If that's something you want to get involved in, if you're into that, go for it. I'm not here to tell you don't do it, but I'm here to tell you to be cautious because if you don't want that life,
Be careful.
this is what to
Yeah.
look out for and don't do it. So
Again,
Yeah.
there's a big difference between Amway and Worldwide. Like, there's
Huge
a big
difference.
Yeah. So if you want
Yeah.
to be an Amway distributor and you want to build your business that way, feel free. It could work. Worldwide is the thing to be dangerous. So like that is the call.
Parasitic
Yeah,
ideas
Worldwide,
are not meant to be
LTD are just two of them, but
Brit Worldwide.
yeah.
Brit Worldwide is one of the other really dangerous ones. Don't love Brit Worldwide. LTD again.
Oh,
like
yeah,
you said.
yeah.
Yeah.
We
But that's
had someone reach
Bill
out to
Brit.
us.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had somebody reach out to us from Brit Worldwide, actually, which
Not
I was
surprised. They're
shocked. I was
bad.
like, oh my gosh, like
Yeah.
I've
There's
never
several.
spoken to somebody from Brit Worldwide. So that was a wild ride, man. That was like,
yeah.
that's the guy who inspired the creators of Worldwide, or the founder, whatever you want to say.
Right. Yeah.
Like that is
Yep.
ancient,
Mhm.
but that's a
Yeah.
story for a different day.
Yeah.
But
Well,
anyways,
Till next time. Yeah.
till next time.
till next time. No, you
we
guys
would
are
always
the
love to talk
best.
to you guys. This is always fun for us. So
We are down whenever. So thank you guys so much.
You can find us on Instagram at xsnt_podcast, as well as TikTok. We're still on there. I know TikTok's kind of a issue right now, so we'll be there until we're not. Otherwise, we will see you on the flip side.
See you guys. Bye.
Bye.
thank you.